Main event of the evening.
These days are
Hello and welcome to These Days Are Ours, a Happy Days podcast. I'm Peter.
And I'm Joe.
And today we are discussing Season 10, Episode 11, Since I Don't Have You.
Okay, Peter, tell us what happens in Since I Don't Have You.
We open with Roger and the Jefferson High basketball team entering Arnold's. The team is overjoyed to get new uniforms, which they think will be the high point of their season. Flip interrupts Roger's pep talk to tell him his ex-girlfriend Lorraine is in town.
Raj, Lorraine Bolander's in town. I told you never to say that name when I was happy. Roger, she's on her way to Arnold's.
Roger claims that everything will be different now, and goes into Fonzie's office to ask her advice. Despite Fonzie's apparent disinterest,
You tell me about a lot of things. Mostly I don't listen.
Roger reminisces about beginning a relationship with Lorraine when they were in 5th grade. A relationship which mostly consisted of Lorraine dating other guys and coming back to Roger when they left. Senior prom, they danced to their song, Since I Don't Have You, and then she left with another guy in Roger's car. At Yale, Roger gave Lorraine his ring, and then she left to spend Thanksgiving with another guy's family. Fonzie calls him a metaphorical pump jockey, standing there with a pump while Lorraine drives off, and Roger realizes he needs to stand up to her. Roger goes outside to talk to Lorraine, correctly guessing that she's run back to him after another failed relationship.
Let me just guess what brought you back to me. You love New York. You have a trinity little apartment on the east side, a nice job with a small but prestigious advertising agency. Then you started having lunch with the head of the agency, Paul.
Patrick.
Perfect. Soon you and Patrick, a three-piece suit of a guy, are engaged to be engaged. Then one night you have a civilized fight, pack up the perfume, and it's bye-bye, Patrick. Hello, Pusho.
Roger, I've missed you so much.
He's able to resist her charms, until she plays their song on the jukebox. They slow dance together and kiss. 2 weeks later, Fonzie and Ashley and Roger and Lorraine have just finished a double date, during which Roger and Lorraine shared a lobster bib and wouldn't stop staring lovingly into each other's eyes. Fonzie manages to drag Roger away,
You and I will go to the store. Thank you very much.
and Lorraine and Ashley talk. Lorraine admits that she was engaged to a man named Patrick,
Is mayonnaise an instrument?
and the relationship may be over, but she still got her bridal registry. The next day, Fonzie, Ashley, Heather, Marion, and Howard are playing Monopoly. Ashley admits she thinks Lorraine is using Roger.
Lorraine and I got to talking, and I got the distinct feeling that she'll drop him like a bad habit.
And though Marion wants to warn him, Howard thinks Roger knows better than that. Then Roger bursts in and declares he's moving to New York with Lorraine. Marion takes Ashley and Heather upstairs.
This is man talk time. And we women folk will just go upstairs.
Come on, Heather, you're women folk too.
Oh, sure. Now I'm a woman.
And Howard and Fonzie talk to Roger. Roger insists Lorraine has changed, despite Fonzie drawing parallels to Lucy, Charlie Brown, and the football. Roger refuses to be dissuaded.
I mean, when it's right, right?
Right.
Right.
Wrong.
At Roger's apartment, Flip is helping him pack despite his own misgivings. He starts to think more happily of it when he realizes he won't have Roger telling him what to do in Milwaukee anymore.
Look out, Milwaukee, because I'm ready to fly.
Lorraine arrives to tell Roger that while he's moving to New York, she's moving to Los Angeles with Patrick, with whom she's getting back together. She thanks Roger for being there when she needed him, and leaves. Roger trashes his apartment in a rage.
Ah. You want Los Angeles? I'll give you Los Angeles.
Right as Fonzie enters, Roger wants to give Lorraine a piece of his mind, but when she comes back, he's initially overjoyed. But this time, he stands up to her. He's not going to be her gas station or jukebox or metaphor anymore, but she actually only came back for her purse. Nevertheless, Roger wishes her a lovely life, and they part. Roger tells Fonzie he feels great. Fonzie invites him out, but Roger would rather be alone right now. He starts to listen to Since I Don't Have You, but changes his mind, and joins Fonzie for skee-ball. Back at the Cunningham house, Marion is beating Howard at Monopoly.
Now, don't take it so hard. It's just a game, Howard. It's not like it really means anything. Yippee!
Thank you, Peter. That was Since I Don't Have You. It first aired back on December 28th, 1982. Happy Days had been preempted the previous week for John Denver and the Muppets.
Classic, total classic.
music.
Happy Days returned on December 28th, followed by a rerun of Laverne and Shirley, in which Laverne gets stuck in an anti-gravity suit at an aerospace plant. The entire ABC Tuesday night lineup was reruns that night, except for Happy Days. CBS had a rerun of Bring 'Em Back Alive. It's the one about the arms dealer who claims to be a descendant of a Japanese samurai. But this was followed by the premiere of the made-for-TV movie Mazes and Monsters with Tom Hanks. It's about some college students who get dangerously involved in a Dungeons & Dragons type role-playing game.
Tom Hanks and his friends get caught up in a deadly game of fantasy.
I am the maze controller.
Until they take it too far.
Early Dungeons & Dragons hysteria is so funny. They thought it was going to turn you into a Satan-worshipping wizard and not just a nerd.
And NBC, God bless them, had a new Father Murphy. This week, a teenage girl in town becomes pregnant and, after a suicide attempt fails, is found by the Murphys and brought to Gold Hill. So, Peter, of those three choices, what are you watching?
I'm probably going to go with Bring 'Em Back Alive, and definitely not Father Murphy. What?
I think that NBC was trying to bring people down after the Christmas season. After Christmas, you need to come back down to earth, and they show this very depressing episode of Father Murphy that helps bring down your spirits.
Oh, so she's like a Virgin Mary metaphor? Like Virgin Mary is the best case scenario for what happens when you're teen pregnant, and this is the worst case scenario. I guess not the worst case, but it is still a pretty bad case.
Possibly. Since I Don't Have You was directed by Jerry Paris, and it was written by Brian Levant, one of Happy Days' regular writers and eventually a major motion picture director. The most recent of his episodes that we covered was Letting Go. As for guest stars this week, obviously we have Wendy Schaal as Lorraine Bolander.
You know, it is so nice to have someone I can count on, someone who makes me feel better. He is always there when I need him.
Wendy's an actress from Chicago who has been working in TV and film since the 1970s, most famously as the voice of Francine Smith on American Dad, a part she's been playing since 2005.
Rings catch girls. Babies trap boys.
She started out guest starring on shows like Rhoda, Phyllis, Fish, Welcome Back, Kotter, and Little House on the Prairie. In 1980, she landed recurring roles on both It's a Living and Fantasy Island. After Happy Days, Wendy showed up on The Love Boat, The A-Team, MacGyver, Amazing Stories, Dear John, Northern Exposure, The X-Files, 6 Feet Under, and many more, along with being a regular on not one, but two death-themed sitcoms, Nearly Departed and Good Grief. Wendy had a movie career too. Her first big screen role was in the disastrous 1984 remake of Where the Boys Are. She's also in the 1985 Alien ripoff Creature with Klaus Kinski and the 1987 Gremlins ripoff Munchies. She's a favorite of director Joe Dante, though he didn't use her in the original Gremlins. He did cast her, however, in The Burbs, Inner Space, and Small Soldiers. Incidentally, Wendy's dad, Richard Schaal, was a very busy TV and film actor in his own right and was married for over 12 years to Valerie Harper. So, Peter, what did you think of Wendy Schaal as Lorraine Bolander?
She is easily the highlight of this episode. I think that what I like most about her performance is that she doesn't overplay the scheming aspect. Like, she just plays it like she's this very charming woman. And you do sort of get the sense that she does kind of love Roger in her own dysfunctional way. Like, she does genuinely appreciate that he's always there for her when she needs him to be. But she also doesn't really see him as a person in his own right. She just sees him as her gas station jukebox metaphor. And I think that's what makes her weirdly fun, because it's kind of funny to watch Roger suffer.
I think Wendy is so great in this episode. As you point out, Lorraine is not an evil or scheming person. She just operates on a different level of reality as everyone else. Really, all that matters is what's important to her at that moment. And other people's feelings can sometimes go by the wayside. She's not trying to hurt Roger. She just goes from boyfriend to boyfriend, and she doesn't see a problem with it. Happy Days doesn't often give big guest star parts to outside actors like this, so it was a real treat to see Wendy like this. You could probably tell from that long intro that I gave to Wendy Schaal that I've been a fan of her work for a long time, so I was really happy to have her on Happy Days, and I think this was a really good showcase for her. The child actors playing the younger versions of Roger and Lorraine are Casey Peterson and Heather Hepler.
Jimbo Kelly moved away. You know what that means?
Is folks' houses for sale?
No, big silly. Now you're my boyfriend.
Heather went on to a made-for-TV movie called Amazons in 1984 and nothing else. With Casey, it's tough to say. Is he the same Casey Peterson who turned up on 2 episodes of Matlock in the 90s? And is he the same Casey Peterson who had some TV writing credits in the 2000s like North Beach and Extreme Dodgeball? I don't know. It's possible. But Peter, what did you think of our kid actors as the little versions of Roger and Lorraine?
They're about as good as you can expect child actors on a sitcom to be. I did laugh at Lorraine just telling Roger, okay, yeah, You're my boyfriend now. Here are all the things I like. This is going to be the tone of our relationship for the next 20 years.
I thought this scene was very cute. How can you not find it funny when there's a little kid with Ted McGinley's hair?
A+ to the hair stylist for this episode.
I thought that was hilarious. Although I thought in the flashback, Lorraine was written a little meaner than she was when she grew up.
Well, she was a kid at the time, and it's been years, so...
So she mellowed out, I guess, over the years.
Yeah.
The actress playing Mrs. Knott is uncredited.
All right now, children, I wanted boy, girl, and so on, all right?
But I think she's Happy Days writer Nancy Steen. As for songs, at Arnold's, we hear Palisades Park by Freddie Boom Boom Cannon. This was a top 10 hit in 1962, and it was famously written by future Gong Show host Chuck Barris, who was inspired by a real New Jersey amusement park. Unfortunately, Palisades Park was bulldozed in 1971 to make room for a luxury apartment complex. The basketball team sings For He's a Jolly Good Fellow.
For he's a jolly good fellow.
I thought we were done with the song on Happy Days, but we were not. It started as an 18th century French song called Marlborough Has Left for the War. It was given a new set of lyrics in England in the 19th century. By the way, our basketball players sing the American version, which ends with Which Nobody Can Deny. In England, the song ends with And So Say All of Us. Peter, had you ever heard the English version of For He's a Jolly Good Fellow?
No, I hadn't. Oh my God.
It's in a Monty Python sketch, and I thought they were deliberately messing up the words for comedy's sake.
For he's a jolly good fellow, and so say all of us, and so say all of...
But no, that's just how the song goes over there.
England is just like that.
The song of the episode is obviously Since I Don't Have You by the Skyliners. It was a top 10 hit in 1959 and has since been successfully covered by Don McLean in 1981, Ronnie Milsap in 1991, and Guns N' Roses in 1994. Both Ted McGinley and Wendy Shaw sing the song in this episode.
Since I don't have you.
At Yale, we hear Boola Boola. Presumably being sung by the Yale Glee Club or the Yale Whiffenpoofs just off screen. This is not Yale's official fight song. That's Cole Porter's Bulldog, which has also been used on Happy Days. But Boola Boola has been associated with Yale athletics since the early 1900s. Were you familiar with that song, Boola Boola?
I was not.
I knew it from The Simpsons. Mr. Burns went to Yale, so occasionally the show has used Boola Boola. I also like the idea that if you go to Yale or any Ivy League school, there's probably like a glee club singing one of those Ivy League songs. That's just how it works out there.
I'm assuming that's how all Ivy League schools work. It's all the children of billionaires and glee clubs everywhere. It sounds awful, personally.
The Whiffenpoofs. I'll buy you a new library if you have them killed.
So many have tried to kill them.
But other smug jackasses in white gloves would just take their place.
We can't be stopped.
As for cultural and historical references this week, Flip mentions Lake Whitefish, which was previously mentioned in Letting Go, another episode written by Brian Levant. There is no such place in real life, but there are many whitefish lakes, 4 in Wisconsin alone. But I like to think that Brian Levant put that Lake Whitefish thing in as a reference to his previous episode. Speaking of which, Roger and Lorraine attended Brayside Elementary School. This is a real school in Highland Park, Illinois, the hometown of writer Brian Levant. So he got to put his old elementary school in the episode. I thought that was kind of cool.
Good for you, Brian Levant. Rep for your hometown.
Lorraine says she likes vanilla Cokes.
I like daisies, vanilla Cokes, Rudy Kazootie, and you.
The Coca-Cola Company has only officially been marketing vanilla Coke since 2002, but soda jerks started adding vanilla flavoring to Coca-Cola in the 1940s, so it was an unofficial beverage for decades. Lorraine also says that she likes Rudy Kazootie. The Rudy Kazootie Club was a children's puppet show that began on New York TV in 1950 before going national on NBC and then ABC.
Hello there, Rudy Kazootie.
Oh, hello there, Big Tom.
And how's everything with the boy genius and all-star athlete on this bright and sunshiny day?
Well, just swell a Rudy, Big Todd, but
Good.
I have to go and sit on a rainbow. Bye now.
The main character was Rudy, a ball cap wearing little boy who loves sports and playing his kazoo. Originally, his name was Rudy Tootie, but viewers started calling him Rudy Kazootie because of his kazoo. The show ran until 1954. Had you ever heard of Rudy Kazootie?
I had not.
I checked out a little bit of Rudy Kazootie on YouTube. It's a very typical 1950s kids show with a puppet. I don't think Rudy has quite the charisma or dynamism of Howdy Doody or Kukla Fran and Ollie. He's just not in that league.
I guess that's why I've never heard of him.
We get a flashback to Roger's college days at Yale University in New Haven, Connecticut. That building we see, however, is West Hall at Tufts University. I don't know why they couldn't just find a stock shot of Yale, or maybe they couldn't use it for legal reasons. I don't know. But that's not Yale that we're seeing. Lorraine says she and Roger spent long nights at the beach. Yale is near the ocean, true enough, but it's not thought of as a beachy college because the water is so cold and the area nearest the school is pretty cluttered with boats. The closest beach is probably Long Wharf, which is accessible by foot or by bus. It's supposedly a long walk, but it's scenic and has some decent food trucks once you get there. So it's not impossible that they spent long nights at the beach. But I think this is another example of the Happy Days writers forgetting that all of this isn't happening in California.
Most definitely.
Lorraine says she is still listed with the bridal registry at Bloomingdale's.
I'm still listed with the bridal registry at Bloomingdale's. I might change my mind about the man I marry, but when it comes to my china pattern, my mind is made up.
This is a chain of luxury department stores that until the 1970s was exclusively limited to New York City. Bloomingdale's does offer a wedding registry, but this particular retail tradition was actually started at Marshall Field's in Chicago. So Chicago is the home of the bridal registry. There is a lot, and I mean a lot, of Monopoly content in this episode. We've talked about this board game countless times before. Marion decides not to buy the B&O Railroad. That stands for Baltimore and Oregon.
I don't think I'm going to buy it. Railroads are so noisy, and they're in the bad parts of town.
It's one of the 4 railroads in the game. The rent is $25, but it goes up if you own more railroads. And no, you can't buy a property if it's not your turn, Howard.
Oh, don't you play that way? It's called a spousal purchase option.
Oh, no, it's not. It's called cheating.
Meanwhile, Fonzie is upset about losing the waterworks. This is one of 2 available utilities in the game, the other being the electric company. The rent for the waterworks is unique since it depends on the roll of the dice. The starting rent is 4 times the dice roll, but it goes up to 10 times if you own both utilities. And Peter, I had to deep dive into goddamn Monopoly trivia to learn all that shit.
I feel like something clicked in my brain when I learned that Monopoly was created to be anti-capitalist propaganda. It's like how Bertolt Brecht plays are deliberately frustrating because Brecht wanted you to channel that frustration into hating the Nazis. Lizzie McGee created Monopoly so that people would realize, oh, capitalism sucks.
But did people get the message?
Well, no, because Parker Brothers ripped it off. And now Monopoly is just the game that people play when they want to hate their families.
Another case of Monopoly-related violence, Chief.
How do those Parker brothers sleep at night?
Fonzie compares Roger to Charlie Brown and Lorraine to Lucy.
You know how Charlie Brown is going to kick the football and Lucy always holds the football for him? And then she just pulls it away, and then he falls on his duff, humiliated. Yeah, that's my favorite.
The lovable loser Charlie Brown is the creation of cartoonist Charles M. Schulz, who first mentioned him in the comic strip Little Folks in 1948. But Charlie's official debut came 2 years later with the start of Schulz's long-running comic strip Peanuts. That strip ran 50 years and spawned numerous animated specials and series, several movies, a stage musical, and lots of merchandise. Lucy Van Pelt did not debut in Peanuts until 1952, but she eventually became Charlie Brown's chief antagonist and greatest critic. In a strip from November 1952, Lucy pulled a football away from Charlie Brown just as he was about to kick it, causing him to fall to the ground. Lucy and Charlie repeated this ritual almost every year for the next half century. Surprisingly, the first character to do this to Charlie Brown was Violet. If I were to say that Lucy pulls the football away from Charlie Brown and Charlie Brown falls on the ground, can you imagine in your head the sound that Charlie Brown makes when he hits the ground?
I absolutely can.
Roger says his surprisingly dirty and beat-up toaster was a Consumer Reports Best Buy. Consumer Reports is a nonprofit organization based in New York dedicated to independent product testing and consumer advocacy. It was founded as the Consumers Union in 1936 and is most famous for its monthly magazine in which products are rigorously tested and reviewed. To me, it seemed plausible that Roger would look in Consumer Reports before he bought a toaster.
Yeah, because he's a big nerd.
But it didn't make sense that he would keep his toaster in such poor condition. Did you take a look at that thing? It was gross.
Maybe he just likes to toast weird things.
Fonzie invites Roger to the pier where they'll play skee ball, ride on the merry-go-round, and have their handwriting analyzed.
We'll go down to the pier, we'll play some skee ball, we'll ride on a merry-go-round, and we'll have our handwriting analyzed. I'd love to do that.
As far as I can tell, the closest thing there would have been to this kind of place in Milwaukee in the early 1960s was the Muskego Beach Amusement Park, later renamed Dandelion Park. By the way, handwriting analysis used to be a common attraction at carnivals and state fairs in the 1970s. You would feed your handwriting into a so-called supercomputer, and it would spit out an analysis. Real-life handwriting experts say this was always a scam and had no scientific validity. Have you ever seen an attraction like that, handwriting analysis, at a carnival or state fair or something?
I have not. Oh, wow.
Would you do it?
I mean, I kind of want to now, just for the novelty of it, even though, yeah, it almost definitely is a scam. I guess it's no more or less of a scam than astrology is, and I still read my horoscope sometimes.
Yeah, it's just for fun. I'm sure the supercomputer had lights and made beeping sounds and stuff like that, and it would feel like you were doing something cool. Fonzie obviously likes it. The episode ends with more Monopoly. Howard rolls a 6, but has forgotten that he's the shoe, not the top hat. Both the shoe and the top hat were among the original 6 tokens in the game, and they're both still part of the game now. Howard lands on Boardwalk, the most expensive property in the game, and the one with the highest rent, meaning he loses to Marion. Peter, if you've ever played Monopoly, was there a particular token that you wanted to be?
Actually, yeah. I always like to be the dog.
Peter, how did you know that that was going to be my answer as well? I had to be the Scotty dog, or otherwise it was not a good game.
The dog is the best. It's the only one that's not just a random thing.
Other observations this week. The players, again, talk as if the Jefferson High basketball team is and has always been terrible.
Guys, I appreciate your enthusiasm, but all we did was get new uniforms.
Hey, face it, with a team like ours, this may be the high point of the season.
They won the state championship in season 8. I think this is being retconned out of existence because it's funnier to have the team be losers. What do you think?
I guess Chachi leaving was just the death knell for them.
I guess so. He didn't seem like that great a basketball player to me.
Well, maybe all of their other good players graduated too, and now they're just left with the bad ones.
Roger said Lorraine and some other guy left the prom in Roger's car. Has Roger had his car stolen by multiple ex-girlfriends, or is Lorraine the same one he mentioned back in season 8?
I think she is. But it's also very funny to imagine that every time a girl breaks up with Roger, she steals his car.
And I know it's a coincidence, but Wendy Shaw has to say the name Roger a lot in this episode. And of course, every time she does, I think of American Dad, which has a character named Roger in it.
Please, Roger, I'm trying.
So, Peter, were there any outstanding Happy Days fashions in this episode?
I love the outfit that Lorraine was wearing when she met up with Roger again. She's got this little black dress with black heels, and she's also wearing this really stylish red jacket with it. It's kind of like a Matador jacket. It's really classy.
I noticed the Matador jacket as well and thought that that was an incredibly cool wardrobe decision. I like how they handled Lorraine's outfits all through this episode. And I want to throw in a little compliment for Lorraine's hair as well. She has a lot of volume to her hair, I would say.
Very 80s hair.
So, Peter, I will ask that age-old timeless question. Was this episode any good?
Yeah, this was a fun one. It recognized that it is very funny to watch Roger suffer, but at the same time, there is something a little bit emotionally affecting about watching him realize, okay, I can't keep being with someone who treats me badly. This is absolutely a case where the guest star absolutely makes the episode. Wendy Shaw is terrific in the role, and I'm so glad that she was here. And I kind of love that she didn't really learn anything at all.
I think that was my favorite aspect of the episode, too, that Lorraine doesn't change. She doesn't learn anything. She doesn't become a better person. And her relationship with Patrick is, I think, doomed. I don't know what's going to happen between those two because something else will come along in her life. I was just so happy to have Wendy Shaw on the show, and they give her a fun showcase role. It's kind of great just seeing Ted McGinley have to play the loser in this and follow this girl around and be obsessed with her for decades. This is kind of an inconsequential episode. It doesn't really change much about the status quo in Happy Days, but it was an enjoyable half hour, and I was glad that they did it. So thumbs up to Since I Don't Have You. So, Peter, how can people keep up with us and find out about all the wonderful things that we are doing?
Listeners can follow us on Twitter at Fonzie Podcast. They can follow me on Twitter at Peter Volfranc. That's PeterVulfranc.
And they can follow me on Twitter at Joe_A_Blevins. They can find this podcast online at thesedaysare.ours.libsyn.com. And they can email us with questions, comments, and concerns at thesedaysareuourspodcast@gmail.com. So, Peter, what do we have on the docket for next week?
Next week, we're finally going to meet Ashley's terrible parents in Hello Fisters.
That's quite a title. So see you later, alligator.
In a while, crocodile.
I don't have plans and schemes, and I don't have hopes and dreams. I don't have anything Since I don't have you, I don't have fond desires, and I don't have happy hours. I don't have anything since I don't have you.
Is mayonnaise an instrument?